Okay, now I want to look at split. And here, I'm going to use it. I think this is a nice little string to test this on. Okay, so here's a string, and let's say that my task is to, well, separate this sentence into its individual words. Okay? Now, what defines a word in this context is anything, well, our first definition is going to be anything between a space. Right? Well, let's start with that, just to be simple. So what I can do is I'm going to define an array of strings. I'll call them the words. And I use split. And actually, the string that I give it is something called a regular expression, which we'll talk about. We're going to dip our toes. Have you seen regular expressions before? Yeah. So that's about the level we're going to do it, but we're going to dip our toes in a little bit more. So, but for now, we can just kind of treat as this. So, again, our first cut is going to be that our splitting delimiter is going to be a space. And as you'll see, it's not going to be perfect because I think as somebody was murmuring, it's not going to identify punctuation yet. Okay? And let's okay, so again, what has happened here? I've said, okay, this is going to be my delimiter, and this is going to create an array of everything in between those. And in this case, it's going to be all of the individual words. So you see that's the array that was created. But then, okay, so let's sort of add some punctuation. Okay, let's not do that just yet. We notice that this last word has that little thing there, and this is where regular expressions come in. So what I can do is I can say that now my delimiter is going to be either a space or an exclamation point. That's what that means. We'll kind of get into that. So now when I run it, the exclamation point is gone. Pardon me?
Words in the yellow.
The yellow one.
The yellow box.
Inside a select.
Are they square? Or braces?
The square braces, yeah. Oh, yes, sorry. Sorry. All right. So what this means is when I put the brackets like that in this context as a regular expression. So this means either A or B. And in fact, I can put as many of these as I want in there. And this basically matches any, either this or this. See, if I don't do that, so here's the thing. If I don't do that, let's say I just sort of naively do this, this isn't going to match anything. Why? Because there's no delimiter anywhere that's a space followed by an exclamation point. What I want is a space or an exclamation point.
There's no comma or anything to separate them?
Yeah, so now let's add a comma. So I can add a comma. And then, let's see. for, oh, yeah. So, all right. So, yeah. So, if you dealt with regular expressions, this is very typical. Okay. So, yeah. So, what happened is it hit the comma and then said, okay, I'm only splitting on one comma, so this next one was I'm going to add to it. All right. So, how can I fix that? I put a plus after it. And that says one or more of these. And when I do that, that should make that extra thing go away. Because now I have what do you do when you have two delimiters? Well, what it actually did before was when it countered the comma, and again, the space was a delimiter, so there was like an empty, it'll put an empty string in there. That's what that was. Yeah.
So if you have a plus, it will continue until it hits the next character?
So I say that again?
You said okay, one or more. So if I add a plus after that, the code will continue until it hits the next character. So if I add two or more,
yeah, okay, so here I have a space, 4 commas, and an exclamation point, and then another space. So it'll treat all that as just one. Now, as you can imagine, this can get it can get a little bit out of hand, because as you throw in more possibilities, then other things start to happen. And there's a way to do that. When we're not going to talk about it now, but there's a way to kind of more generically do that. We'll cover that when the time comes. Okay, what I wanted to, what I did want to finish up with is I want to come back to this string builder thing, because this is this can be a very useful way to deal with stuff. So here's how you use a string builder. String builder. And as you can see, there are actually there's overloaded constructors, so I can give it any kind of char sequence, which are including, or I can give it a string. I can give it a capacity. I almost never do that. Again, that's kind of a throwback to old style stuff. Because internally it's kind of keeping things in an array, but then when I put one more thing in, it expands it, kind of like what lists and collections and things do. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build on what I did before. But now what I want to do is I want to recreate the words, but now I want to separate them by commas. Okay, so I want to take this sentence that I've now parsed in a particular way, actually not the most generic way, not the most general way, but now I want to take these words and I want to append them to another string in which they're separated by commas. Let's say I wanted to write to a comma-separated file on the basis of what this data were. So what I can do, okay, so here's how I do it. I can do, and in fact, Builder has kind of a nice little chaining thing, which can be overused. But what it does is basically it returns itself. And so I can append I can kind of chain these appends. Now, people can get carried away. 2 or 3 of these is, I think, the maximum at which it becomes unreadable and unmaintainable. But for this particular context, what did I want to do? I want to take these words that I've now extracted from somewhere, and I want to write, maybe ultimately write into a comma-separated file. So how do I do that? I want to now make my delimiters commas. And the fact that commas, anyway, so now what builder by itself is not a substitute for a string. So in order to extract the string, I have to basically extract it in this way. Although, because it's it's its toString, I could have just printed it out, but I wanted to. Okay, so here's the row that this, oops, print. Okay, so we see that we have taken the words here, stripped out all, in fact, notice that there are a whole bunch of commas in here, but those aren't going to be passed through because I've stripped them out and just had the words. And now the only little issue here is this extra comma. And since we're out of time, we'll have to deal with that next week. Because we will, you don't want to have that extra comma in there, so we want to deal with it. There are 2 ways to deal with it. One is to basically put a test around appending it here, and the other is to one of the nice things about StringBuilder is we can actually delete things we've already put in, and so I could delete if I know what the index of that last comma is, then I can reach into the builder and yank it out, and that's what I'll do next week.